This is Maestro, and I am very happy to be joined once again for another special Saturday edition of Ringside Reporter Live with my brother, Mr. Ringside Reporter Live, Mr. Habibi himself, Joe Habib. How's it going, brother? Happy Saturday. How are you?
Doing good, baby. Always feel good on a Saturday morning, being able to unleash the truth to the public out there, man. Because a lot of people walk around with blinders on, right?
Mhm.
They got those black, those black masks people wear when they go to bed to block out the sunlight.
Yeah,
Well, today, guess what? We're gonna take those black masks off of people's faces, and we're gonna let the light shine in. Right? This is what this is going to be. This show is going to be like a catharsis, right? We're going to open up the gateways here to knowledge. That's what we're here for.
absolutely. We always here for the knowledge. Big up to all of the people that are joining us live. We got a few people that are already here. Hit the like button, invite people over to the party because we are going to be talking about Tyson Fury, Alexander Usyk. We might get into a little bit later about the big heavyweight fight taking place today between Anthony Joshua and Jermaine Franklin. I'm very interested in hearing Beeb's betting takes on that one because as the fight gets closer, especially with the weigh-in, Joe, I'm a little bit more conflicted now than ever in terms of how I think that result is going to go. But the topic for today really is about Alexander Usyk, Tyson Fury. It's the fight that didn't happen and that isn't going to happen April 29th. And both of us don't actually think that this was ever going to happen in the UK. So never happening, guys. Fury versus Usyk was never happening in the UK. That's going to be the main topic for the first hour of today's show, which is, of course, here on Ringside Reporter Live. Hour two is going to be taking place on my channel, and we're going to be talking about bad, bad, bad. Why Saudi Arabia is bad for UK boxing. So stay tuned for that as well. We're going to put the link in the chat so you can head over on there afterwards. But Joe, we were both disappointed when this fight didn't take place, or it was announced that it wouldn't be taking place April the 29th. But there is a lot of backstory that isn't really being discussed as much as I think it should be discussed. And I know you think it should be discussed, Joe, because the simple narrative is Fury bad, Usyk good, right? And I do think it's a little bit more complex than that. We live in a very binary society here in the United States, especially where it's like you got two parties, and for some people, blue is good, red is bad. For other people, blue is bad, red is good, and oftentimes people don't see beyond the MSNBC, CNN narratives on one side and the Fox News, News Nation, Newsmax narratives on the other side. We're both consumers of independent media, Joe. We're both independent when it comes to our politics as well. So we're going to be completely independent when it comes to this topic as well, right, Joe?
Correct. 100% honest. We're going to be objective. We're going to just call it for like it is. And we're going to put ourselves in the position of both fighters, right? And we're also going to ask you guys to put yourselves in the position of both fighters. And we're going to ask you some, you know, hypothetical questions. And I'm just curious to see in the chat how you're going to answer these hypothetical questions because I got a few for the people in the chat. And I also believe possibly Maestro does too as well. So we're going to look at this as if it's a real life scenario for not just the fighters, but for any human being as well. We're gonna delve into basic human nature here, right? We're gonna delve into basic human nature here, and we're gonna look empirically on how human beings act in situations such as this, right?
Yeah, I think that's more than fair, Joe. Why don't we get started by just kind of quickly reviewing something? This was straight out of the Bad Left Hook website, one of the websites that I actually follow when it comes to following boxing content. Tyson Fury versus Alexander Usyk talks break down. Fight will not happen April the 29th. Of course, when this story dropped, I was amongst many who were disappointed. There are people demanding smoke from me as it related to criticizing Fury, and I felt I kept it reasonably fair and balanced in my assessment, in my critique. My complaint really was not even that this fight wasn't happening April the 29th. It was more to do with the fact that as the boxing public, as a boxing community, I don't think people kept it real. The people behind this fight, in terms of whether or not this would be taking place in Wembley Stadium, sorry, the national stadium in the UK, in London, the UK's national capital. I was one of the few that were suckered, the many, I should say, that were suckered into believing that this fight would take place. And of course, it's not taking place. But when you kind of look beneath the hood uh, at what was going on, you start looking at the mechanics of all of this. It actually becomes quite clear, Joe, that the UK was never going to be the spot for this fight. And
Never.
the reasons for that are quite obvious. And it even says here in the same article, this does not mean that the fight, which would be the first four belt unification in the heavyweight history, won't happen, and doesn't even mean it won't happen this year, but it won't be coming in a month, which at this point is probably not a real surprise. Any hope that it will have still happened on that date hinged on the fight being made by this past weekend, probably. This was last week. And then they go on to talk about how it's more likely to take place in the Middle East, which we're going to get into, Joe. So I'll take it. I'll pass it over to you, Joe. And when you're ready, I mean, we can go to the Saudi promoter in his statements this week. We can go to Bob Arum in his statements this week because they all really point to the same thing: money, 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 money. Go for it, Joe.
Yeah. So again, this is not the Tyson Fury defense team right now. I'm not going to be that defense lawyer for Tyson Fury, right? Tyson Fury loves to wind people up. He loves chaos. He likes to come out and say things to stir people up, get under people's skin. And by me saying that, that doesn't mean I'm justifying him doing that. By me saying that, that doesn't mean that it's not going to rub people the wrong way. By me saying that, I'm not telling you that you have to like it. Oh well, you keep making excuses for Tyson Fury. No, I'm following a pattern of behavior with this man. No matter what, even in fights that you say he's trying to avoid. He does this before every single fight, regardless of whether he fights the person or not. He always resorts to these tactics because even in his book, he does a lot of this, similar to what Muhammad Ali did, but in a different way. He's trying to create chaos and he's trying to get under his opponent's skin. This is a man who thrives off of chaos when he knows most people don't thrive off of chaos. So he's putting that chaos out there, in my opinion, to give himself an advantage and put his opponent at a disadvantage. Right? So a lot is being mentioned about how Tyson Fury is a hypocrite, which he is. We've always said that, right? That's part of his personality, right? That's part of his the essence of who he is as a human being. He's a hypocrite. We know that, right? But let's take a look at Alex Krasev and a lot of his interviews that he's been doing thus far, because this guy seems to have not met a camera or a microphone that he doesn't like these last couple of weeks, because he's doing tons of interviews. In one interview, he's saying, don't blame Tyson Fury, don't blame Queensberry, don't blame Bob Arum. And then in another interview, he's talking about how he's trying to use these analogies about Lamborghinis and talking about greed and this and that. But when you ask him if this fight was ever gonna, if this fight is going to happen, he says not on April 29th. He never says this fight is never going to happen. He just says it's not going to happen on April 29th. And then when you ask him, oh well, in one interview he was asked, well, Usyk accepted his deal, but Tyson Fury didn't accept his. Is that why the fight broke down? Well, he goes, that's what I'm being told. But there was also some issues from Saudi about the scheduling, and they had some issues with the date. And we talked about this, and we have empirical data and historical data to support what we're going to say right now. The fight was very close to Ramadan, right? It's going to be on April 29th. Ramadan ends on April 20th. I believe it begins it began in March and it ended on April 20th. So if we look at history, there's never been an event, to my knowledge, and I looked very hard to find this. And if you look at all these big fights that have been in Saudi, right, they've never been during or close to Ramadan. They've always been either in the winter or they've been like, yeah, they've basically been in the winter or the summer, right? They've never been during the spring, during these Ramadan months, right? Because again, obviously people are fasting, right? And they're not going to be at their best, right? From a productive standpoint, right? So when you're trying to build these makeshift arenas and you got people fasting for Ramadan, and you're trying to promote a fight, you're trying to have people at their best, right? So they can put their best foot forward in order to promote an event. You don't want someone who's fasted, who's not at their best mentally and physically, right? So Alex Krestev has kind of double talked a lot here. First, it's greed, but then it's not greed. First, it's Fury's fault, but then it's not Fury's fault, right? And you have to understand these guys are promoters, they're managers, right? They have fiduciary responsibility to make their client, which is the fighter, the most money possible, right? So we're being told, and no one's denying this. The man in charge at Skills Challenge who helps negotiate these and put these deals together in Saudi, right? Amir Abdullah basically confirmed that they put up money, right, knowing that they're going to lose it, right? They know that, right? Because again, we've already talked about this. They're concerned about sports washing over there, whether they're going to admit it or not. They're putting on these events in the hopes that they can put themselves in a positive light with the rest of the world, particularly the Western world, right? So they're willing to put up money that no one else can put up. And if you're dealing with someone who's not afraid to lose money, right? They may lose money on these events, but obviously they're making money in other ways. So it's kind of like a wash for them. It's like a guy who gambles with money he's willing to lose, knowing that at the end of the day he's going to be in the net positive from his other financial endeavors, right? Let me just land this plane. I'm sorry. I know you want to get in, but let me just land this plane, and I'm gonna land it pretty quickly. So when you got a guy like Alex Krestev who knows that his fighter can make 60 million if the fight's in Saudi, as opposed to 20 million if the fight's in the UK, do you honestly believe, right, that he's going to allow his fighter to take a deal where he's going to be making 3 times significantly less? Ask yourself this one question. Say you're a contractor and you're based out of Massachusetts and you get 2 offers to build a facility, one facility in Connecticut and one facility in New York. And these facilities are virtually identical. One guy tells you we're going to give you 70 million, and another guy tells you, oh, we're going to give you 20 million. You're going to take the job that's going to pay you 70 million. Again, put yourself in these fighters' position. You guys want these guys to be comic book heroes. We fight for truth and justice, and we're heroes, and we sacrifice ourselves, and this and that. And we're so virtuous, and we're such honorable men that we will just fight for the honor. We will. It's like back in the days when these warriors fought in these coliseums, and they put their lives on the line just to entertain the people, and they don't care about anything else. That's not how the real world works. You don't operate in that way. So why would you expect someone else to operate in that same way? So at the end of the day, you got Alex Khrushchev telling all these different stories. Don't blame Fury, blame Fury. Oh, it was about the rematch clause. Well, it wasn't really about the rematch clause. We have 15 minutes of other things. What it all boils down to at the end of the day is Saudi was not prepared to put this fight on in the spring, in and around Ramadan, because it's not conducive to what they want to do from a scheduling standpoint. And they always were saying, and they said it from the beginning, we would love to put this fight on in the wintertime, particularly the November, December. That was the plan all along. Well, people, then why did they lead us on? They always do this to us because what do? This helps promote the fight. This helps keep both names in the press. You have all these clickbait articles. You have all these people who are angry. One side loves Fury. One side loves Usyk. This guy's the good guy. This guy's the bad guy. Sort of like what they did with Mayweather Pacquiao. Mayweather doesn't want the fight. He's afraid of Pacquiao. That's why he's asking for all these demands, blah, 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 blah. And then you have both sides going, and then we're told, oh, the longer they wait, people are going to lose interest when it always plays out and turns out to be the exact opposite. When Pacquiao Mayweather was first proposed in 2009, both fighters were offered a $25 million guarantee. They ended up getting friggin' 4 times that when the fight eventually happened. So you can sit there and say, well, Fury's this, Fury's that, Usyk's this, Usyk's that. But at the end of the day, everyone is going to buy that pay-per-view in December. And here's another thing people fail to realize. Oh, well, Fury makes this amount of money, but the event loses money. Again, no, Saudi is openly telling you they are prepared to lose money because they want to stage these events. And pay-per-view numbers, if a fight is in Saudi, from what I'm being told, pay-per-view numbers mean nothing, because what happens is they give you the guarantee up front. So they make a projection of what they feel the event is going to get with everything included. And instead of giving you the smaller guarantee and then letting you have to get back-end money, right, off the pay-per-view, they just give you the money up front. So they're going to give you 60 million, 75 million, whatever the case may be, and then they're going to get that pay-per-view money. That pay-per-view money goes to them because they're putting up the investment and they're putting up the risk. That's why for the second Usyk Joshua fight, they demanded that Sky be the broadcaster because they wanted to be able to recoup as much as their money as possible, knowing that Sky would be able to put this fight out to more people than DAZN would. So the deals are different. Oh, well, they were going to do 50-50. Now it's not 50. Well, again, because it is technically 50-50 because each guy is getting their own deal from Saudi. And no one's going to – Usyk's not going to know what Fury's getting, and Fury's not going to get what Usyk's getting. So technically it is 50-50 because each side is getting a separate deal. And again, they're putting up the money and they're giving you the projection of what the pay-per-view and what everything is going to be up front, whereas anywhere else in the world, the business model is not done that way. So Saudi is taking a substantially more risk than the UK would or the United States would because – you're getting a smaller guarantee in the UK, you're getting a smaller guarantee in the US, but then you got to get your back end off the pay-per-view. Imagine why wouldn't you go to Saudi instead where there's no what ifs? They take the what if out of it. We're not caring. They're telling you not to worry about how much the pay-per-views are going to do because they're already valuing the pay-per-view ahead of time and they're paying you what the projection is. Go ahead, Maestro. Tell me where I'm wrong here.
No, you're not wrong. I'd hate to hear you land the plane and take a really long time to do it, but that all of that was worth the wait. So, I mean, you hit a few nails right on the head. The first nail you hit was this whole idea of people needing their heroes. I mean, it's like they want, boxing to be an Enrique Iglesias song. I can be your hero, baby. Like, are you serious, guys? They're fighters, okay? That's what they are. I can kiss away the pain. No, they can't. They can't do that. All right? And then I got people demanding that I do Fury videos criticizing Fury. Okay, I criticize Fury, but I'm sorry. It's like I said on my stream. I'm sorry if I don't have the same emotions and hate about a fighter that you do, or the same emotions and love for a fighter that but you went harder against Dillian. You went harder against AJ. So basically, I hurt your feelings with my takes about Dillian and AJ. That's what you're saying. So back on topic, the other nail you hit right on the head was this. It's obvious to me why Saudi preferred Sky over DAZN. Joe, if you're sports washing, right, and you're essentially engaging in a PR campaign to promote the positive image of your country, right? Who would you rather that PR campaign go out on? Sky or DAZN?
Guy, without
Yeah, I mean,
question, without question.
it's akin to a customer acquisition cost, right? If you're going to spend all kind of money on a commercial campaign, are you going to try to get your commercial on the Super Bowl, or are you going to try to get your commercial on at 3 a.m. with Mayweather's commercials in Vegas? I mean, it's obvious. You're going to want it in front of the most eyes. So that's why they did it. And I'm going to just say it because I was thinking it while you were saying what you were saying. Isn't it very easy to accept the 70-30 split, Joe, when you damn well know that the fight's not happening in the UK? I mean, isn't that like the biggest virtue signal of all time? I'm the good guy. I'm taking 30%. Meanwhile, you damn well know that the fight's not happening. Because I'm convinced now that everybody knew that the fight was not happening. Go for it.
Here's the thing. Alex Khrushchev is playing you just like Tyson Fury's doing it, but he's doing it in a way which you like, which he makes himself and Usyk look favorable to you, right? It's that simple. They're both doing the same thing, but they're doing it in different ways. Usyk is the good guy. This is like a WWE storyline playing right before your very eyes, and you guys can't see it. You guys can't see it. This just makes the fight bigger. Tyson Fury, it's better for him to be the bad guy here because now people aren't just going to go there to see him win. They're going to go there to see him lose. I've said this several times. You know, Alex Khrushchev is not a dummy. Oh, well, Usyk's been training. Okay, like that. How do you know Fury hasn't been training? Oh, well, we haven't seen any video footage of him training. We haven't seen any video footage of Usyk training. We're supposed to just take your word for it because Usyk is the good guy here. So obviously,
and fighters train year round anyway.
Yeah,
top level fighters are always in the gym.
Like
stop it
again. Stop it, right? And then like, oh well, you know, Sugar Hill was saying that he was there just to train Lawrence Okolie. Again, I'm hearing conflicting reports about that. Like Tyson's in there still training and sparring too. Both guys were training. But here's the thing: they weren't training for each other. Usyk was training for Dubois, and Fury's training for Joshua, right? And then Eddie Hearn basically let the cat out the bag. Oh, we're ready to do that Joshua fight right now, right? Why would he say that? Because he admitted that they were talking to George Warren already too. That fight has been negotiated behind the scenes, right along all this other BS. So both sides were putting all this information out there. What they were basically doing was promoting using all of this press to promote their next fight, right? They were using this for Usyk to promote the fight with Dubois, and they were using this to help promote the fight with Joshua because they were keeping their names, both names in the headlines, and everyone knew what was going to happen behind the scenes. Just like I told you that Joshua Fury was never going to happen at that time. They were always going to do the third fight with Wilder. I kept telling people that for like 6 months to 8 months, and they were just doing all this BS to help promote each other's fights, which is what they always do. It's the tried and true, method. It's the playbook of these promoters to do this, right? And it was pretty obvious what was going to happen, right? So again, the Fury fight with Joshua is going to happen probably in July. The Usyk fight with Dubois is probably going to happen in June, and then they're going to meet in December. And all this other BS is not going to matter. All this BS is not going to matter. And again, we're not telling you have to like it. We're not telling you have to enjoy their way of doing things, but you have to follow patterns. You've seen this play out over and over again over the years, not just with these two fighters, but multiple fighters. We're just supposed to believe that Tyson Fury is the only person out there that is greedy and cares about money. If you believe in capitalism, then you believe in greed. Greed is the driving force behind capitalism, and it's always been that way. So then you have the virtuous person who looks at greed as one of the seven deadly sins, but the reality of the world is greed is the fuel, right? It's the gasoline that powers the engine called capitalism. So to sit there and think that Usyk doesn't care about money, and to sit there and think that he shouldn't care about money, Usyk should never fight for 20 million when he knows he can get 60 million for the same fight. Who knows? Now let's run the numbers, man. Let's just run the numbers, right? If the fight happens in the UK, it's an $80 million fight, right? And if it happens in Saudi, it's potentially a $160 million fight. So if you do 70-30, right? If you do 60-40, right? In the UK, Fury gets 48, Usyk gets 32. You do 50-50, they get 40 each. Now, if you split up the 160, right? And you run the numbers, and Usyk gets his separate deal, right? And Fury gets his separate deal. Say Fury was to get 75 or 80 and Usyk was to get 60, right? So even in a 50-50 deal, Usyk getting 60 million, even if he was to go 50-50 even if he was to go like 50-50 in the UK, he still would get $20 million more in Saudi, right? By getting his own separate deal, which probably wouldn't be 50-50, than if he were to go 50-50 in the UK. So the numbers just don't add up. There's no way possible this fight makes sense in the UK when Saudi's willing to put up more than double what the UK can put up. It just
Yeah.
doesn't make financial sense.
Let's get, and that's if it's 50-50 in the UK, because Bob Arum, who I want to share the video you shared with me, and I also had seen it, said that he would have gotten about 20 million in the UK. So let me get to the super chat, and I want to address a comment. First, the super chat. We're going to Slide Tendencies. Salute Slide Tendencies. Thank you very much. All right. Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. There you go. And we've got a comment here from Olaf the Almighty, who apparently is a golden retriever. You guys were on here 2 weeks ago and were both 100% confident this fight was happening on April 29th. Now you are both acting like you knew all along this was a hoax. I actually did a whole video, 2 videos actually. One last week, Saturday, and another one, I believe it was Tuesday, where I said I was wrong in believing that the fight would take place. I don't know about you, Olaf, but I don't have a problem with doing retrospective analysis and correcting the record and looking at things for what they are. I think reflection is a very good practice and one that everybody should engage in, especially when they're engaging in analysis on a YouTube channel like I do and like Joe does. So I don't know about you, Joe. Do you have a problem with going back and looking at facts and coming to conclusion based on new evidence and new things that have been brought to light? I don't, but maybe you do. I don't know.
As a man, you have to ask yourself one question. Because I made a statement about Tank Ryan. I was flat out wrong. But by me being wrong and getting the correct information, right? The truth was worth more to me than being right or wrong. So in life, you have to make a decision. You want to be right all the time and have a net negative in your lifetime, or if you're given a choice to be right 50% of the time, be wrong 50% of the time, but as a result of being wrong 50% of the time, the 50% of the time you're wrong, you're able to gain knowledge that can help you in your life become more productive and more successful. So it's not about the greatest businessmen, the greatest people in any field, right, became great not because of their successes, but because of their failures, because their failures taught them how to succeed. So you have to make a decision as a man. Are you concerned with being right, or are you concerned with accessing the correct information, the truth? Are you more concerned about accessing the truth and reality, or do you just want to be wrong regardless of being getting access to the truth or reality? I'm going to be honest. I'm wrong 50% of my waking hours in my life. I'm wrong 50% of the time, and I'm not ashamed to admit it. And I'm going to be honest. I was never confident this fight was going to happen on April 29th. And Maestro can tell you, because we've talked several times, and I kept saying it just makes no sense to do this fight in the UK. When I knew,
I was the one that was suckered into believing that it
yeah,
was going to
yeah,
happen.
no.
I hold
So
my hand up to that. I was like, oh wow, he accepted 70-30. Oh wow, they are going to be signing the deal this weekend. Oh wow, like there are these cryptic messages from Frank Warren that makes it seem like the fight is going to be taking place on Saturday. But you know what I did, Joe? I held my hand up. I said I was wrong. I came on my channel. I said I was wrong. I went on your channel. I said I was wrong. I went on my channel a second time and said I was wrong. I I have no
I
problem admitting when I'm wrong. I do it all the
if
time.
all you have to do, and I'm just going to explain this to you. You guys can say whatever you want, but I'm going to give you real factual numbers. If you were to sit there every week and you had every single fight that took place on a schedule, and you did it 300, I'm not 365 days a year, but anytime there was a fight, right, every weekend, and you just made picks all year round, right? You were forced to make picks on every single fight, right? You would be wrong at least 50% of the time, because that's just how it works. That's how the numbers work. I've done spreadsheets. My friends have done spreadsheets, and we looked at our picks over the years. And we may get a year where we're 60% of the time right. But the way you make money betting on boxing is you have to take live underdogs, right? So when you are right, you have to make the most out of being right, right? Anyone can pick the favorites, but even then, if you just decide to pick the favorites every year, you're still going to be wrong about 35 to 40% of the time. So it's like this whole thing, right? This whole thing about being right as a means to measuring success. No. I'll explain to you I'll explain to you the scorecard of life, right? In the scorecard of life, it's not about how many times you're right, how many times you're wrong. You have to maximize and get the most benefit in those moments of being right. And in those moments of being wrong, you have to minimize and mitigate the effect of your losses and being wrong. So if you make an investment and you lose $50 million, right, by being wrong 20 times, but then you're right those two times, right? And in those two times you're right, you turn a net profit of 100, right? So you're still in a net positive regardless. You were wrong more times in your decision making, but the times you were right, you maximized your earning potential, right? That's what life's all about. So it's not about wins and losses. It's about the types of losses you suffer as opposed to the types of wins you suffer. So Michael Jordan, right, in the course of his lifetime, when he first started out, this was a man who took several L's, right? But when he did end up winning, those wins were so big that they erased the L's. That's what the secret of life is. Don't look at it as as quantitative. Look at it as qualitative. Too many times in life we worry about quantitative. Look at qualitative, right? That's what you got to look at. So by dragging this fight out, as a fan, of course you're not going to like it. Of course you don't want to have to wait. But the reality of the situation is, again, you can't tell a man and someone who represents that man to advise him to take a deal that is 3 times less than what he could get in another scenario. It just does not make
At
sense.
the end of the day,
It's not logical.
when justifying taking the AJ Ruiz rematch to Saudi, Eddie Hearn was very clear. He gave multiple video interviews about it, saying, listen, he has a fiduciary responsibility to his fighter to maximize his fighter's earnings. And if that takes place outside of the UK for a UK fighter, then that's what he's going to do. Can anybody in the chat explain to me why Alex Krachik would advise Alexander Usyk to take 30% of a smaller pot of money than he would have received in Saudi Arabia and will receive in Saudi Arabia later this year? Can anybody explain that? Because if you can explain that, then it makes total sense why Usyk took 30 or agreed to 30%. But I'm now at the point where I don't think that he legit did want to accept 30%, and that everybody involved in this fight knew that it wasn't going to be taking place April the 29th. And if you believe that Usyk thought the fight was going to take place April the 29th, and you believe that he legitimately was going to be willing to take what, 10%, 15%, maybe less of what would be on the table for him in a Saudi Arabia fight, I mean, we're going to drop the link. We always do. And I'd love for you to come on and explain that viewpoint for me, because I'd really like to understand it more. Until that time, Joe, do you want to go to the and react to the Bob Arum video?
I'm gonna say one thing and one thing only, and people can say whatever they want. Shout out to Dan the Man. He says, being a pathological liar, the mass is fed up with him. Unfortunately, it was a matter of time that it was going to catch up to him. I mean, everyone is no matter what Fury does, his past is never going to be erased. He's chosen to play this role to the public, and whether you like it or not, it's made him successful. All these guys' objective is the same thing. Like Fury and Joshua don't move any different from each other. It's just the way it's being packaged is different.
100%.
They all like for years, Eddie Hearn, when trying to make that undisputed fight with Wilder, he did the same thing. Was Joshua being greedy by not giving Wilder the percentages that Wilder felt he deserved? Right? Why was Wilder's WBC title like, oh, well, this is for undisputed. No one said, why can't Joshua just do this? Why can't Joshua do that? Everyone kept saying Joshua is the A side, right? So he should get the percentage that he's asking. But now with Fury, all of a sudden, Fury's just not like, Fury's not supposed to flex. Again, you don't have to like the system, but you have to acknowledge that the system has been played out the same way for, like, everyone plays the system the same way. Everyone uses their leverage that they have. No one has leverage and doesn't use it in this business. We're expecting, like, again, we're expecting these people to act like superheroes. Oh, we're just doing it for the greater good of man. Our goal is to just make sure you guys are happy, and that's it. They know that whether you're happy or not, they know that they can make you anxious. They can make your desire greater the longer they make you wait. That doesn't mean you're gonna say, oh, you made me wait so long. Oh, like, is anyone gonna seriously tell me that they're not gonna buy the fight? Right?
I mean, you asked Tony P that question, right? He said he's not interested anymore.
I believe Usyk accepted the 30% of the condition that he gets 70% in the rematch should he win. That is the standard, and Fury moved the goal. No one ever. Let me address that. Eddie Hearn.
I gotta go in when you're done. I really gotta go in.
Eddie Hearn said that no A side ever in the history that he's known of accepts anything less than 50-50. Dan, run the numbers. Run the numbers. You gotta be real. Be real. Take all of your emotion out of it. You don't have to like Fury. You don't have to like anybody. If someone is going to tell you that you could make 3 times more fighting at a specific time in a specific venue compared, they were never going to do this fight in the UK. They were playing us. They were
Can I
playing us.
I want to translate this too. Because it says, I believe Usyk accepted 30% of the condition and he gets 70% in the rematch should he win. Translation, Usyk accepted 30% based upon terms that he knew Fury would never accept. Because I'm sorry, like, why is it one rule for the goose and another rule for the gander? Like, I was brought up believing that it's the same rule for the goose as it is for the gander. And when Andy Ruiz fought AJ, did they reverse the split in the rematch? Is that common practice?
And they
What
never
what
do
what
that.
fight can you point to where the A side is drastically becomes the B side in the rematch contractually?
Eddie Hearn,
I can't think of one.
Eddie Hearn, Eddie Hearn had rematch clauses for Joshua, right? In both instances with Ruiz and with Usyk, and he never took the smaller share in either rematch. Here's the thing, Dan. If you're honestly going to tell me, right, that if you're Usyk's manager promoter, you're honestly going to tell me, right, that you're not going to take the fight in Saudi and make 3 times more as opposed to fighting in the UK. If you were a manager and someone presented that to you where you could make $20 million in the UK, or if you wait till December, you can make 60, right? Or even 70. Like you would never advise your fighter to take that big of a cut. It just like AJ and Fury did the same things. If you have fiduciary responsibility over your fighter, there's no way you're going to allow him to take a deal that's 3 times smaller than the deal you can get if you wait a couple months. It just, they were never, all this was bullshit. They were, all this stuff, Fury not, both guys were training. They just weren't training for each other, right? And you could say whatever you want about Sugar Hill. He was capping. He was capping. They were training because John Fury came out and refuted that. He's like, he was actually mad at Sugar Hill for saying that. Why is he lying? He was in camp with us. They're training. They're just not training for each other. All this other bullshit. Oh, in one interview, like I said, Alex Khrushchev is saying, don't blame Fury. And another interview, he's talking, oh, well, it's about this, that. They're playing us. All of this, it's by saying that Fury's the bad guy and he's greedy and this and that, it only makes the fight bigger. You can believe whatever you want, but common sense and logic, I mean, we have to apply that. Are you ever going to advise your fighter? Both guys have 2 fights left, right? Usyk has said he only wants to fight Fury and Wilder and he wants to retire. Fury has basically said that he wants to fight Joshua and he wants to fight Usyk and retire. Both guys are looking for the exit strategy. Let's just be real about it. This fight was never going to happen in the UK when Saudi had this deal in place for them in the wintertime. That was the plan all along, man. I mean, you can believe what you want. It just doesn't make sense to believe that either side was going to do this fight in the UK when they were going to make 3 times the amount of money they're making doing it in Saudi. Dan, you're arguing with emotion, Dan. Let's look logically. I'm going to ask
Can we
you.
go to the video of
Go
Bob
ahead.
Arum? Let's
Go
go to
ahead,
the
man.
video. Let's go to the
Go
video
ahead.
of Bob
Go
Arum.
ahead.
And
Go
if
ahead.
there's an echo or any audio issues, please do let me know. But I'd like the voice of an authoritative figure right now. Here we go.
So much for joining us. You just said something very interesting. You were talking about Tyson Fury's future, and obviously now there's going to be a lot of eyeballs on what Anthony Joshua does on Saturday. regarding Tyson Fury?
Yeah, absolutely.
What are you going to be looking for? Does he just need to get a victory to make that
Forgot to give credit for this. This is Lance Pugmire working on behalf of FightHype.com.
fight
He has to
significant?
look good, and he has to convince the English fans that he's in there with a chance against Tyson Fury. And if he does that, which I think he's capable of doing, then that will be a massive fight for the late spring, early summer.
Oh, by the way, just to pause this for a second, there's a video released yesterday where Eddie Hearn, he's been doing it all week, with talking up an AJ fight against Fury, and even saying, Joe, that AJ will accept 30% to fight Fury. So, I mean,
I don't know, man. We got to take emotion out of this and just look at logic. Go ahead, man.
100%.
I mean, talk about unanswered prayers. I mean, everything has been talking about Fury and Usyk, but with that falling apart now, Fury Joshua will obviously capture the imagination of the English fans and probably throughout because it's Tyson Fury,
And
right?
hopefully, and Usyk is going to fight Dubois, and Frank will be doing that fight in England. And then if both of them win, then we can revisit Fury and Usyk, hopefully in Saudi Arabia.
At the end of the day, I know you were just making reference to this. At the end of the day, the temptation of the Saudi money really did play a role in this fight unraveling, right? Because
All right, I need everybody to pay close attention to what's about to be said.
This is the guy that does the deals. This is the guy that does the deals, and he's telling you that the fight was never going to happen. In
By the
UK,
way, the
basically.
guy who, unlike Alex Krachik, was keeping his mouth shut throughout the negotiations. So let's listen.
unraveling, right? Because
Yeah,
Usyk,
absolutely. Otherwise, it never would have unraveled. Absent the Saudi interest, obviously there was enough money to get that fight done, and it was the money they had agreed to. I mean, maybe there was a disagreement on the rematch, but I think that was just an excuse.
mhm. Is there one person to blame, or is it just a matter of looking at the
just a
financial
matter of,
situation?
You know, the Saudis.
All right, so timeout. So Krachik isn't blaming Team Fury. Bob Arum isn't blaming Team Usyk. But yeah, fans are all going crazy, Joe, blaming one side. And, you know, like I said, I was wrong about April the 29th. I was wrong in terms of believing that Tyson Fury legitimately wanted to fight on that date. I held my hand up for it. I admitted it. But you know what I'm not wrong about now? I'm not wrong when I say that Team Usyk had no intentions of fighting for 30%, and Team Usyk had no intentions either of fighting on April the 29th. And Team Usyk wants the big bag in Saudi.
Now listen to what Aram says after this. Krashik is telling you there was an issue with the timing in Saudi. Aram is telling you there was an issue with the timing in Saudi. He even told you that the rematch thing was just BS. This is all BS that people are just putting out there because they're trying to play both sides against the middle. It's haven't we learned from Pacquiao Mayweather? We haven't learned from Pacquiao Mayweather. They're doing
from Crawford Spence.
I mean, they're playing both sides against the middle. And I'm going to tell you this: don't be surprised if Saudi doesn't do Crawford Spence. Don't be surprised if that doesn't happen.
There we go.
Clearly told us that they like the fight, but only in the winter, November, December.
Thank you.
They didn't mislead anybody.
They told you we can't do the fight in the spring. We can do it in the winter. So of course you're going to take the fight in the winter for 3 times the amount. You can't tell me. Oh my God, please just be honest. Can anyone in this chat tell me if you are advising Alexander Usyk? Please just answer this question with 100% honesty. Tell me, would you ever advise Usyk to take a fight for 3 times less the purse instead of waiting a couple months and getting 3 times more.
Look, and
would anyone advise Usyk to take this fight in the UK, knowing that the Saudi deal is out there in December? Let's just be honest.
I'm not gonna play this video, Joe, because DAZN is like really hard ass about playing their content, and so I'm not gonna do it. But could you do me a favor? I'm gonna zoom in on it, Joe, because again, AJ's promoter, Eddie Hearn, has been talking about Fury all week long. Could you just do me a favor and read what the title to this video from DAZN Boxing says?
Anthony Joshua would take 70-30 split to fight Tyson Fury. And I'll tell you why he would do that. I'm already going to tell you why he would do that. Because first of all, that's bullshit too, because they wouldn't even have to worry about a 70-30 split, because that fight happens in Saudi. Each guy gets their individual deal, so nobody knows what the percentage is. So if that fight was to happen, right?
They're doing it in Saudi.
Joshua would get 60 million. Fury would probably get 70 million, right? And no one would give a fuck. Right?
Right. So it's another, what the point I'm trying to make, Joe, is it's another virtual signal. Look how great I am.
It's another diversionary tactic. It's another diversionary tactic.
Look how nice I am. Look how much of a man of the people I am. I'm gonna take 30% to make this fight happen.
Listen,
Max, I can't play the video because DAZN is terrible when it comes to playing their content. You can go look at the video if you want and have a look at it.
Listen, we got a common theme in this chat. Greedy. That's the word that's being thrown around in there. If you are getting punched in the fucking head, right? Hundreds and hundreds of times a year, right? And you're not greedy, then you're an idiot. Larry Holmes once said, if you're fighting for anything but money, then you're an idiot. Who's going to sit there and get punched in the head hundreds and hundreds of times a year and not be greedy? Everybody is fucking greedy in this sport. And guess what? There's nothing wrong with it. You should be greedy. You should be greedy. Why would you not be greedy? Again, you guys want superheroes. You don't want real people. You want superheroes. You guys want fucking these fucking monks. This is what you want. This is what you want. Again, if you believe a fighter is going to donate his purse to charity, then that's up to you for believing it. Then that's up to you for believing it. If you want to believe all these crazy things that fighters say, and you want to take everything serious, and if this is what you want, then, it is what it is. Hamid, you know what you're going to get when you come here, man. So you can't go to a gun range and expect it to be quiet, bro. Like when you come here, you know that the volume is going to be, you got to be strong, man. If you can't deal with it, man, I don't know what to tell you. My ears are hurting. Come on, man. You got to man up, brother. And let them balls hang.
Or just lower the phone on your headset.
Yeah, slower the volume, bro. Come on. Maestro.
It's not rocket science here, guys.
People think that I take offense to being loud.
No.
Again, I've always been this way.
I'm a PE teacher. I have to be loud. I teach. Sometimes I teach 70 kids in the gym. I need them to listen. It is what it is.
When you're entering an arena where there's testosterone flying around, I have a high level of testosterone. Maestro has a high level of testosterone, right? What do you expect us to come in here and whisper? That's not how we're built, man.
Then why didn't Fury accept 60-40 to the winner?
Again, all of the split shit is irrelevant, because the end game is we go to Saudi, we each do our separate deals with Saudi. Like, again, you guys.
Look, here's the thing.
What are you missing? What are you missing?
Here's the thing.
Here?
The fight couldn't take place during or near Ramadan. Yes or no?
It couldn't take place during Ramadan.
The fight will take place towards the end of the year, more likely. Yes or no?
December. The fight's going to happen in December. After
Here
they
we go.
each get their
Dan the
interim
man.
fights
Dan
in.
the man wants to come in. Let's get Dan the man in,
Let him
because
come in.
we got a few more minutes, and then we're gonna switch over to part 2 on my channel. Dan the man, happy Saturday. How are you doing, brother?
Happy Saturday, guys. I'm good. Just believe that I'm not working today. So other than that, I'm good. Yeah, can you guys hear me?
Yeah, loud and clear. So you want to talk? Do you want to talk about Fury, or do you want to talk about AJ Franklin taking place later today? Well, what you want to talk about, bro?
Dan, let me ask
Yeah,
you: do you want to talk about the fairy tale where nobody cares about money and everyone cares about being virtuous and being morally more? Everyone cares about their moral compass in life, and no one is greedy, and we deal in a capitalistic society, but we're not supposed to be capitalistic. We just want to just make sure everyone's happy, and we don't care about our own well-being.
Yeah.
Is that? I mean, explain to me this utopian world that exists that I'm just missing. Maybe I'm blind. Go ahead.
No. You're absolutely right about that, man. Now, if there's one common ground that you and I can agree on, being, then this is one of them. In a profession, when it comes to boxing or any combat sport, you're going to be greedy. You're going to want to make the most money as possible, because at the end of the day, you're the one taking punches in the head. You're risking your life and your health. You're for the benefit of the fans and the audience that's paying to watch you, bleed or to get knocked out, or potentially, situations like that. Of course, you're going to be greedy. Of course, you're going to want a lot of money for, to be compensated fairly. But the problem I have with this situation is, just don't go around and be a walking contradiction and tell everybody over and over again, I'm a fighting man. I don't care about the money. I'll donate my purse to charity for this fight, this, that, and the third. Don't do that, because at the end of the day, you'd be subjected to ridicule. Just be honest about it. I appreciate you more if you've been honest. Say it's all about the money for me. Like AJ recently said not too long ago in the May Franklin press conference. It's about the money for me. Cool. Admit that. You know what I mean? Then we wouldn't really have this much of a ridicule or problem. But now you're contradicting yourself time and time again. I don't, in the space of every 2 seconds or 2 minutes, I don't know what it is. But the fact is that you over and over again, you said that it's all not about the money. It's all about being the best. But yet now you're talking about the money in the same breath. So that's the problem I have with it. So that's one thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, can I jump in for one quick second? And I apologize because I always interrupt you, but there's just certain points I have to address. I'm just going to briefly ask you a question. For years, didn't AJ tell us all he cares about is undisputed? But now all of a sudden the truth comes out, and now he finally tells us he cares about money. Don't you think that maybe Joshua was kind of misleading as well by telling? And again, I don't care that he was, but don't you think that they all kind of give us these misleading messages in the attempt to try to sound politically correct? But at the end of the day, the reality is it all boils down to money, regardless of what. I guess as people who have watched this sport and understand this sport, and just using common sense, regardless of what they say, shouldn't we always believe that it's always going to come down to the money, regardless of what they say? And again, you don't have to like the packaging. The packaging isn't appealing. It's not everyone's cup of tea. I agree. You don't have to like the packaging. I don't like the packaging of certain fight. I don't like Tank Davis. But at the end of the day, the reality of the situation is, they all fight for money. The titles are a byproduct of that, in my opinion. But go ahead. So
many fighters have said, "Oh, I'll fight him today. I'll fight him for free. I wish the fight was right now so that I could fight him."
These are all hyperbolic statements, and I think we should, as long fans of the sport, we should kind of know what it's all about.
Yeah, I get what you're saying on that, but I think the difference is Joshua was already getting paid, very, very well at that point. And I think there was some part of him that really believed in being the best because he was winning all the time. He was collecting belts. So when you're in a situation like that where you're coming off a strings of wins and you haven't taken defeat yet, of course you're going to have that part of mentality. But the money is a balance of being compensated well and also chasing legacy at the same time if you're in his position. But given the fact that he suffered back-to-back losses, he's lost 3 of his last 5 fights. He's probably in a position where, to me, and I have to comment on this a little bit since we're talking about Joshua Franklin. To me, Joshua is at the state of his career at the point that he doesn't really care about winning a title anymore. It's about pretty much maximizing whatever he can earn per fight at this point. If the belt comes, cool, so be it. But at the end of the day, it just seems like, just my opinion, it just seems like part of that hunger of being the best and being the champion is gone, in my eyes, from Anthony Joshua at this point. Now, he's done very well, and I give him credit for that, but that's just the way I see it. But to your point, I think there has to be a balance of where you want to be the best, but at the same time, you want to be compensated fairly. So I can respect that part. That part I'm an advocate for. But just again, just don't be a walking, talking contradiction and try to con the public to believing that you're so-called fighting man. In actuality, you're just a businessman like everyone else. And by the way, you're the same guy that criticized AJ for being a businessman. And yet you're telling everyone you're not? Okay. Then you tell everyone you're not involved in negotiations. Within the space of 1 week, you're involved in negotiations with Usyk. So come on, man.
Dan, I'm not disagreeing with anything, but the point that Joe has been making and that I've been making is more on the side of, well, not on the side, but the argument is essentially that Usyk was never going to accept 30%, and this fight will take place in Saudi. It was never going to take place in the UK. Forgetting all of the histrionics and hyperbolic statements of Fury, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, here's where I'm a little. There's a bit of a what I call a bit of a plot hole that's missing in that argument. Yeah, it would have made sense that they were going to wait for a later date. But my question is why did Usyk's team accept the deal for the date proposed for April 29th in Saudi? That seems to be left out there. So
here's the problem, Dan.
Yeah.
Here's the problem, Dan. Anyone can verbally accept anything. It doesn't matter unless you sign on the dotted line. I could say I'm going to do this, that, and the third. And if I don't actually sign, then did I really make the commitment? Anyone can say anything. I think a lot of things were put out there, once again, that were basically done to promote the fight and try to make the fight bigger. Everyone wanted to keep both. Why do you think Khrushchev is in the UK right now and he's getting in front of every camera and every mic? He's doing shit tons of interviews. Why is that? Because he is trying to promote his fighter. He knows that there's going to be a fight in the UK between his fighter and Daniel Dubois. And
of course,
Dan, this is what it all boils down to. In my opinion, all these guys are the same, but the packaging is different. The messaging is different. But it's just like politicians. They're all the same. They all take money from donors. They're all, motivated by big business in some way or another. But all these guys have different messaging. And again, I'm not trying to, criticize you or tell you how to think or whatever you like whatever you like. I think for me, you're more concerned about the messaging than you are basically the true context of this situation. Like the true context of the situation is what it is, regardless of the messaging. At the end of the day, you can hate all of what's going on right now. And I don't particularly like all that's what's going on right now. But at the end of the day, I understand that this fight is more than likely, I would say 99.9% is going to happen in December, as long as both guys win.
Fair enough. That makes sense. I will say this. I'll make one last point. I'll let Hamed and someone else get in. But I will say this. I would agree with your points. But again, that pothole is one thing I can't figure out. But there's another thing I can't figure out is that why is it taking 6 months to get to this point? I don't understand that. What I'm deferring to is back to the fact that Fury already got past White. And then months later, Usyk got past Joshua. And for everyone, that's why I call receipts here. They openly said after the Joshua and Usyk rematch that this is an easy fight to get done, 50-50 on the contingent. This fight being held in London. We can get this done. All we have to do is get the site and everything sorted out. Easily can be made. It's getting to this point now, 6 months later, that this fight can get called off after many contradictions, many misstatements, many goalposts being moved. In fact, I have to defer to the fact that Fury, 2 or 3 years prior to this, have even been dismissive about Usyk, saying, I don't want to fight this guy. I'm not interested in fighting a guy who barely speaks English, a European who barely speaks English or something like to those words. And yeah, here you go. You fight guys like Tom Schwartz and Otto Wallin who barely speaks English. So, I mean, unknown Eastern European guys.
there we go.
Yeah, but
That's a really
Yeah.
lame criticism, though,
Let's
because
go.
Usyk
Let's
didn't
go.
even have the
Wait,
belts yet.
Hold on,
Let-
Slide.
wait, hold on,
We only have.
Slide.
We
Hold on.
only. We
Hold
only.
on. Do you
Hold
want
on.
to get
Go
there?
ahead, go ahead.
Yeah, if you want to
We
get
only
there,
have a few.
Let Hamid
Yeah, I'll
get
let
in.
Hamid get.
Let Hamid get
We
in, and
only,
we'll let
we
Sly go
only
after.
we only have a few minutes left because we're going to do part 2 in a moment. So, Ahmed, the floor is yours, and then Sly, I'll give you a minute, and then after that, we'll head over to my channel after closing thoughts from Joe. Go for it, Ahmed.
I'm not going to get into Fury too much. Look, I've criticized the guy. I'm just going to talk about the fight. I do think Dan doesn't like Fury, and he's got a right to. I think a lot of people don't like him right now, so he's had to defend him. I will say one thing: if someone wants to know more about the other side of the story, they should listen to the Frank Warren interview he did with Steve Bunce. A couple of, I think it was last week. Sorry, and he gave his side. I didn't agree with everything, but I do believe that now that Krasik is start defending Fury and saying other things, that maybe there's some hope this fight could happen later this year, because Bob Arum came out and he said Usyk lost $60 million for that fight not happening in Saudi Arabia. So I do think there's some hope. If it doesn't happen this year, I think it's all on Fury. At that point, I think it's 100% because Usyk has made a lot of concessions, and I do believe his promoter manager were kind of angling to get that fight back in Saudi Arabia. So if it doesn't happen later this year in Saudi Arabia, I think it's hard to defend Fury.
Sly's turn.
Sir, thank you. One thing I do want to say about this comment, though, it's like it's very interesting to me that like you're going for Dubois more than you're going for Hrgovic, and to me, the obvious answer to that is that Hrgovic is not any kind of a draw. And if you were that confident in your drawing power, why not take on Hrgovic? Why not take him on? Okay, obviously the Dubois fight is a more lucrative fight, but Sly, the floor is yours.
Yeah, my bad. I thought my bad. I was just gonna say
No,
that
go for it.
I remember when Wilder was about to fight. I can't remember his name. He was about to fight the one guy, and he said he was gonna kill him, and I'm gonna, I want a body on my
Brazil.
record and all this
Bermane
stuff.
Stiverne.
Bermane Stiverne. Yeah, I remember when he said he wanted to kill Fury and all this other stuff. Then we see him hugging Fury out in Saudi Arabia. Then we see him knock out Hellenius. Then we see him crying in the post-fight saying, we don't know what's going to happen to these guys because they take hits for a living. Suddenly, every single boxer, the point I'm trying to make is that it's like pro wrestling. Of course, they're going to say what they want to say to build up the fight. They're going to be inconsistent. That one thing that I sent you, Maestro, about where John Fury said that he said it, like, I can't defend everything my son says. He's got a mental condition. He's bipolar. He says stuff that's not true. He was like, but it's boxing. Like it's all buildup. It's all stuff to argue about. It's all stuff to fight about. That doesn't mean like even the purse splits. It's all like it has nothing to do with us. Like we're not in the freaking room. We're not listening to any of this shit. So when I see all these people talking about he's not honest and all this stuff, it's boxing.
No one's honest. No one's honest.
No one's honest. It's
Wait. You can't conflict someone.
Guys, sorry to interrupt, but we're already over time here.
Sorry.
Carry it over to the next show if you want to.
Yeah, we're gonna continue this over there. I'm gonna drop the link in the chat for everyone. All right, and I'm gonna give closing thoughts to Joe on this. Joe, go for it.
Everyone contradicts themselves. Everyone says crazy things. Again, you don't have to like the packaging. You don't have to like the character. You don't have to like the person's personality. You're not going to vibe with everybody. But again, when you strip all that aside and you just look at the reality of the business doesn't change. It never has, and probably never will. So I strip all that aside and I look deep down into the crux of the situation, and everybody is going to care about money. That's the job of a fighter, and anyone representing that fighter is to get that fighter the most possible money. And at the end of the day, it makes zero sense to do this fight in the UK. And it was all just a smokescreen and a diversionary tactic to keep people talking about the fight until it actually does happen at the end of the year. It's part of the promotion. That's all it was.
There you go. So part 2, we're about to get into that. We'll continue this discussion there too, because it's linked. I'm going to make the argument that Saudi Arabia is really bad for UK boxing. Bad for UK boxing. And I'm going to explain why. And we'll continue some of this talk around the fact that this fight didn't happen in the UK, why it won't happen in the UK, and kind of the implications beyond this fight for other fights involving UK fighters. So join us for that. Thank you, Hamed. Thank you, Dan the Man. Hopefully you'll join us over there. And I'll see you guys all in a moment. Thank you so much, everybody. We'll see you soon.